wanted to share with you guys my experience taking the NGN NCLEX, my study tips, and how I was able to pass it within the first try. And I want to say it's been about a month and a half since I've taken the NCLEX, and it's still relatively new in my mind, so I thought it would be a great way to kind of talk to you guys about it so you guys can feel more comfortable. You guys have to take this exam as well. The NGN has a minimum of 85 questions and a maximum of 150 questions and a time limit of 5 hours to take the exam. And the NGN really focuses on your clinical judgment and your decision-making skills as a nurse. And there's more nuanced and complicated test questions that were previously not in the traditional NCLEX. Onto my timeline of when I started studying for the NCLEX. I kind of started studying for it in July, which was the start of my last term of nursing school. And my school uses Kaplan as a resource to kind of prepare the students to take the exam. And my school actually gave out 2 Kaplan style textbooks. We got the basics one, and then we also got the content review guide that kind of summarized major concepts. And then there's also a online version of Kaplan that I used religiously just to study for it. And at my school, we actually also had someone from Kaplan come out and give us a NCLEX kind of overview training course over the span of 3 days. And I was able to actually pick up some great tips and study techniques and kind of just see where some of my weaknesses were, which I thought was a great perk of my program, which I know not everyone will have that opportunity. My school kind of paired me in a way where I had specific content review or exams or question trainers that I had to do by certain dates, which kind of prepared me, but I didn't really study for them just because I had so much going on during my last term. I kind of did it just to kind of check off a box for school, but it gave me a good background and it kind of familiarized me to the type of questions that the NGN kind of focuses on and kind of how it looks, which is really important to me as someone who gets nervous before taking exams. I think Kaplan does a great job of mimicking how the NCLEX looks like. Also, during this time, I got my fingerprints, my background check, and I also registered with the Oregon State Board of Nursing for my RN license, just so that when I finished nursing school at the end of September, once my transcript and everything was submitted and approved, that was when I actually received an email, I think a week after nursing school, that I was authorized to kind of schedule my exam and take it. After I received the authorization email, I immediately registered to take the exam, and I wanted to take it relatively soon just because I had all this content and this knowledge that was freshly in my mind. So I decided to register for October 1st. So that gave me 2 weeks to study intensively for the exam, which I think was a good amount of time for myself just because I wanted to give myself some pressure, and I also wanted to enjoy some time off from nursing school before I started my first nursing job. So within these 2 weeks of studying, I just mainly used Kaplan, and I did all their CAT exams, I did all their question banks, and I did their practice test, and I remediated all the exam questions. Even the questions that I got correctly, I still remediated, and I used my iPad and kind of wrote down big concepts that I was noticing that I was repeatedly getting incorrectly. And I also watched a lot of content review videos on YouTube just to kind of solidify certain concepts for me, and I found that that was very helpful, just kind of getting a big overview and snapshot. So I studied every day of those 2 weeks, and I studied from about 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. But I gave myself normal breaks. So I gave myself a break every hour. I was studying, reviewing content, and I tried to mimic the testing environment as much as possible. So I put on my noise canceling headphones and I took breaks as needed, but I was also very conscious of the time and how I was pacing myself. When I wasn't taking a practice exam, when I was studying and reviewing content, I kind of studied for an hour, gave myself a 10-minute break, and then I would study another hour, and then I would have lunch and I would have dinner. And it was just that similar pattern every day for 2 weeks. And I was kind of driving myself insane, but it really solidified kind of the overarching themes that I was seeing in the NCLEX. And I think you will start seeing and feeling the rhythm the more you kind of take the practice exams and the more you familiarize yourself with different test style questions that the NCLEX likes to ask on. For the cost of the exam, it's total of $433.50. So the fingerprinting and the background check was $64.50, and the Oregon State Board of Nursing fee for my RN license was $169, and then to register for the NCLEX exam, that is $200. So some study tips I have is to do a practice exam, or what I did was on Kaplan, I did question banks and I just set it to 85 questions, and I made sure I at least answered 85 questions each day. And it kind of gives you an overview of your weaknesses, and I just kind of focus on those weaknesses, remediating those questions, and I think that that really helped me get into that testing environment. Additionally, I want to say simulate that testing environment as much as possible. So if you guys are in a noisy environment, I would recommend being in a quiet environment, getting used to it. I work best in quiet environments, in environments where there's minimal to no noise, and I like wearing my noise canceling headphones, and I recommend investing in them if you guys don't have them, or just using traditional earplugs because that will do the job as well. And in the actual NCLEX testing environment, they do give you earplugs and also noise canceling headphones, which I found very helpful as well. Another major testing tip is to honor your breaks, because testing fatigue and testing stamina is a real thing. I remember when I first took my initial CAT exam to kind of just get an overview of how I was doing before the NCLEX, I could barely sit for 30 minutes and read and understand what the question was asking me, just because my mind was wandering to all these different places, and I questioned myself if I have some undiagnosed ADHD, because I couldn't sit still and I couldn't think straight for a long period of time. But over time, I was able to build up my testing stamina, especially within those 2 weeks leading up to the exam. Another study tip that I think is often neglected, especially during times of testing stress, is self-care. And I made sure from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. each day, I was doing some sort of self-care for myself. And that could be cooking a nutritious meal, doing a workout class. I got really into pickleball during that time, and it was a great stress reliever for me. And just finding something that you find interesting, doing a hobby, reading books. I think it's really important to build that in each day so you do not drive yourself insane. On the day of the exam and the night before the exam, I highly recommend going to bed early. Try not to review content. Try not to do any NCLEX distracting things. Don't start going down this rabbit hole of certain concepts and different things that will make you more anxious. Just because I'm such an anxious person, I already have such a difficult time sleeping. So anything that reminds me of the NCLEX, I think just adds more to my anxiety. So know what triggers your anxiety and try to avoid that as much as possible. And on the day of the exam, I recommend eating a nutritious breakfast before going in, taking deep breaths, and reminding yourself that you're smart and that you worked hard for this. After the exam, I definitely recommend not psyching yourself out, taking deep breaths, and doing things that will distract your attention away from the NCLEX. So usually you can view your unofficial results 2 days after taking the NCLEX, but for me, I was actually able to view it within 1 day, which was such a stress reliever for me, and I felt so relieved after viewing my results, and I was so exonerated. I don't even know how to describe my feeling, because I just felt so much weight was lifted off my chest, and I could finally breathe, and I could finally sleep, and I just felt so many different emotions. And the next thing I did was book myself a massage just to relieve all the muscle tension, and I just cleared off my desk of all the studying notes that I made, just because I just didn't want to remind myself of the NCLEX. It's such a draining process. I think those are the main things that I kind of wanted to talk about. I might have missed some things, and if you guys have any questions about anything about taking the NGN or anything that I missed, just leave it down in the comments for me. I just want to say thank you guys so much for just watching me me and supporting me on this journey. I'm just so grateful, and I can't wait to share more with you guys because I have also started my first nursing job, and I've been learning so much on the floor and just being able to practice my skills and build new connections with so many people. It's just been such an exciting chapter of my life that I can't wait to share with all of you guys. Again, I just want to say thank you guys all so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.